Welcome, everybody, to the next big panel in the Iconicon itinerary. Itinerary? Anyway, I have a lot of optional extras installed for this discussion. I'm going to start bringing them in right now. I want to bring in Conrad from Movie Oubliette, the excellent podcast and YouTube channel combo. Conrad, how are you?
I'm very well. How are you, Michael?
Good. Conrad is our resident Englishman for this discussion, so his weight and accent carry a lot farther as far as mileage goes in this discussion. We have from the Infinity Equation, the main host of the Infinity Equation, Dante, massive Bond fan. Excellent. We have Matthew Kearns, the man behind Matt Movie 611. Matthew, how are you? I think his internet's frozen. No, wait, there he is. Cool. He's moving. How are you, Matthew?
I was only slightly frozen for a time.
He froze again. And then lastly, we have a longtime friend of mine, the host of the excellent YouTube Clobberin Times channel. He's been a podcaster for over a decade. He is a huge sci-fi and comic book expert, and he is a massive Bond fan. And I wanted to give him the "and" in the cast listing. And Mike Alonso from the Clobberin Times podcast. How are you, sir?
What? And the rest? Like is the professor and Marianne or what?
No. It's and it's the and Marlon Brando as Jor-El.
Whoa! Wow!
Yeah.
I'll take that. Remember, he got top billing. Oh my goodness!
That. You've seen that. You've seen those kind of credits, right? I mean, it's prestigious.
Yes. Oh yeah. No, I got you. Thank you for having me here, bro. It's great to see you. Great to see you all here. Dante, Conrad, Matthew.
Now I feel like the special guest star like that when they go like alphabetical order or like Law Order SVU is like the random like guest guy, and then you got that big main star name like, oh, here you go. This is who you come to see in Law Order. Forget everybody else as guest star. Here's your main guest star right here. But before we start, we got to do this. We got to do this right.
Okay.
Do you expect me to talk? No,
Mr. Bond.
I thought Dante was going to start singing some Bond theme before we started.
Oh, I could do that.
Like, 15-yard penalty on Dante. That was a movie from the 60s.
What would the Iconicon Bond panel theme be, and who would sing it? Kylie Minogue, probably.
Oh, I wish you would do one. I wish you'd be asked. I wish you'd be asked to do one. Kylie Minogue makes me happy.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
You not so much.
You better be wearing a collar, sir. Kylie.
Oh, yeah. Dante, I'm sorry that I stepped on that. I thought you were going to say the line and then have me say the other line. So I'd like you to just do that quickly one more time. Both lines, Goldfinger and Bond. Please go ahead.
No, it was actually just for this panel. He's like, do you expect me to talk? No, Mr. Bond. I expect you to talk about the 80s Bond.
Well done, sir.
Well done, sir. And speaking of 80s Bond, I want to tell everybody in the chat, there's been a little bit of typical geek and pop culture confusion because everybody likes to debate Kirk and Picard, and they like to debate who's the best Bond and what's the best Star Wars trilogy. The title of this is Bond in the 80s, not Roger Moore versus Timothy Dalton. We, as collective fans of, both Bonds, depending on who you're talking to in the panel or who's talking, are coming together to discuss the entire decade of Bond. It is not a death match. It is not trying to determine who's better than who. Okay, so you can all put your shivs and your pitchforks down and not riot in the chat. All right. So I'm going to feel
I look a bit biased, though. It has to be said.
Well. Again, though, it's okay. It's okay. Hey, here's the deal. It's okay to fly your flag. It's okay to fly your Dalton flag. But what we're just telling everybody is we're all here together to discuss both of these guys, and nobody's out to get anybody else. So everybody in the chat can stand down. All right. So first question I wanted to ask all of you is, I know we're all coming into Bond mostly from the 70s and 80s. How did we all find Bond originally? Conrad, I want to start with you. What was your first Bond memory?
So I grew up with Roger Moore in the UK, being on TV endlessly, like every Saturday on ITV, which is our third main broadcast channel. He would be on every Saturday afternoon, and it's kind of like Doctor Who. It's the James Bond you grew up with that you remember the best, I guess, or the most fondly. So yeah, I guess it's kind of strange that I've got a soft spot for Dalton here because he came later on. But yeah, so that was my first experience of it, and I didn't actually see a Bond in the cinema until License to Kill in '89, and at that point I had to cheat my way in because that movie was classed a 15 because it was more violent than any other Bond had been. So I had to lie about my age to get into that movie. So
and it's amazing because, sir, you are still so refined and look gloriously 12 years old. I don't know how old you are, but I would imagine you still have to lie to get into movies now. I mean, you are clearly a Highlander, an immortal. Where's your katana blade? How many heads have you taken? What's going on with you?
I have a portrait in the attic. That's what's going on.
Ah, nice.
Yeah.
Me
Sean
and George,
Connery.
me and George Sanders are going to figure this out together and find out why Angela Lansbury killed herself. All right, sir. Dante, what was your first Bond memory? How did you get connected to James Bond 007?
Oh man, I was just, like Conrad. Like I watched it on TV when I was a kid, and then it kind of grew from there. I was like, oh man, like this is kind of like interesting. I think the first one I may have seen was a Sean Connery one, and I can't remember which one it was exactly. But then I wasn't like a Sean Connery fan at the beginning. I was more of a Roger Moore. Like when I seen Roger Moore on the screen, I was like, yes, Roger Moore and James Bond. Like, yes, let's go. And then like once I got older, I was like, yeah, Sean's a little bit better. But I think the first one I seen in theaters was was it the newer ones?
Which one?
I think it was one of the newer ones.
Okay, one of the Brosnan films or something like that, or one of the Craig ones?
It was one of the Daniel Craig ones.
Wow.
I think that was like one of the first ones I seen in film, like at actual theater.
Okay.
It's just because like I just didn't get a chance to go see the other ones at that time, and I think at that point, like most of them were like rated R, so I couldn't go see them or rated P. No, they weren't rated R. Was it rated R? No, it was PG.
Yeah, they were PG-13, I think. Yeah.
That's what I thought.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just I just didn't get the chance because I was just I wasn't. I guess it was more like, okay, I'm like I don't really want to see that guy as Bond. Like I want to see Timothy Dalton. Like he's not like when I seen the trailers and I was like, that's not my Bond. I'll stick with the older ones, the classic ones that show every Thanksgiving.
All right. Well, I just want you to know that, like I said, this isn't a Bond versus Bond. So Conrad and I we're holding back. We're holding back a lot. But yeah, I totally get that. I totally get how that shook out. So did you like the modern Bonds then, the Craig and the Brosnan Bonds?
Yeah, I didn't have no problem with the Daniel Craig one. The Brosnan ones, I was like, they're kind of iffy.
Right.
I stick with more of the classics, like with Sean Connery, Roger Moore. What's his name? The first one in Her Majesty's Secret Service.
George Lazenby.
Thank you, George Lazenby. I like those. I stick with those mostly, and then the Daniel Craig ones as well.
Right. Well, I'm going to give Matthew Kearns the prestigious and for this one and go with Mike for the next setup. Mike, tell us how you got started with James Bond.
Oh, man, you could have made me the and. I feel old enough as it is, dude. I would have been happy to be the and the whole day, man. I mean,
don't do that. Here. I almost spit my drink out.
Good God, you guys, I'm old. In 1973, I went to see. It was the premiere of Live and Let Die, but before it, there was a special feature of Diamonds Are Forever, the previous film. And I was quite young, maybe 9 or whatever. I'm going to try to age myself here, 9 something years or whatever, 9, I think. And I didn't understand, after seeing and loving Diamonds Are Forever, not really knowing much going in, just it was a movie, it was an action film, I didn't know anything about it. I didn't really understand why there was a different dude in the next one.
Right.
when we got to see Live and Let Die after Diamonds Are Forever. I didn't get it. Why is there a different actor? I don't know what is going on. But I loved it, of course, and ever since then I've saw it.
Hello? Hello? Did we lose you, Mike? Might have lost you. I think we lost you. Maybe he'll come back. Matthew, tell us about your first Bond experience.
So in 1962, when Dr. No came out, I was negative 35. So obviously I was first in line for the theater. No, my first exposure to Bond was Pierce Brosnan. It was, want to say Tomorrow Never Dies. Mm-hmm. And I knew Pierce Brosnan from Mrs. Doubtfire. He's the guy who dates Sally Field. And so I'm like, oh, I like Mrs. Doubtfire. What's this? And didn't know what it was. And my parents, I guess, weren't really policing what I was watching on TV. And I just fell in love. I could still remember watching the motorcycle chase in that film. And I was just like, oh my God, what is James Bond? And thankfully, AMC at the time were just like every weekend we're showing James Bond films. So I would just sit there for hours and just got caught up. And then obviously the Daniel Craig came out. The first one I saw in theaters. And the only one I've seen so far has been Skyfall. And I liked the Daniel Craig ones. And then I got into high school. I started reading the books. And then I also saw the Dalton films. And so slowly Daniel Craig went downhill. But this isn't a debate. Everyone can, like my friends at Take Three, everyone can hate me over there when I talk about Bonds. But Brosnan is always my guy because I think, like Conrad said, it's always your first. And he's the one that, like, whenever I think of Bond, I always think of, for some reason, I always think of the moment of him in GoldenEye when the guy pulls down the paper and he's just like smiling, punches him. That's like the first image I get of Bond. So
right. Real quick, just to answer the question and wrap this up for myself, is my story is actually identical to Conrad's, shockingly enough, as I've just heard it. My first Bond film in the theater was the License to Kill, because I'd seen The Living Daylights on video cassette for rental. Prior to that, I'd watched all the Roger Moore films and some of the Connery films on TV when they were broadcast. So it was an identical story. The only difference, of course, being is that I am not 900 years old and I have not experienced quickenings like Conrad has. So, but speaking of Conrad and your vast knowledge, I'm so glad that you're on this panel, because Conrad's wealth of knowledge goes on movie Oubliette goes not only for films but film scoring and everything like that. Can you give us a little bit of a primer into Bond in the 80s? As compared to Bond in the 70s or 90s, is there a way to encapsulate that in a few sentences, or is that impossible?
Well, it's tricky. I mean, I guess if you think of the two actors involved, what you're really looking at is the tail end of Roger Moore's era as Bond. You have to remember that Roger took on the role of Bond when he was already older than Sean Connery was when he gave the role up. He was 46. But Roger also had a portrait in the attic, so he was able to pull off the role until he was 58 in A View to a Kill. But it was kind of an odd shift, because I think you can tell in For Your Eyes Only, which was Roger Moore's first entry in 81, that he was just about to give up the role. I think he was playing hardball, and finally they threw too much money at him, so he carried on. But you can tell from the tone of For Your Eyes Only that they were actually trying to ground the franchise again in a little bit more realism, because it had gotten ridiculous with The Spy Who Loved Me and Moonraker, both of which I love. They're completely crazy. But they are sort of science fiction fantasy movies rather than realistic. They're sort of comic book films almost. Whereas For Your Eyes Only is quite gritty. It's more investigative. There aren't so many gadgets. So it was trying to sort of ground Bond again in the Ian Fleming novels. But unfortunately, from my perspective, Roger continued possibly beyond the age bracket where he was able to convincingly play it. I think by the time it got to A View to a Kill, and he's knocking on 60, and taking on Grace Jones in the bedroom, you're thinking, no. So finally, at that point, he gave the mantle over to Timothy Dalton, and Dalton was able to do what he'd always wanted to do, which is, again, ground the character in a little more realism. Throughout the period, in terms of scores, you pretty much have John Barry along for the ride most of the time. There are a few exceptions when he was a tax exile early in the 80s. So you got Bill Conti on the For Your Eyes Only. But he was able to see in Timothy Dalton's first outing, and then it became Michael Kamen on License to Kill, because John Barry was kind of tired of it by then.
Right.
And I guess they kind of wanted to cash in on the success of Lethal Weapon and Die Hard and get Michael Kamen on the soundtrack to try and turn it into that style of action movie, which you can tell in the movie as well. It's, again, slightly different. So,
right.
Yeah.
Now, I want to flip this to Dante to kind of kick us off. You know, Conrad, you just talked about how Roger Moore was, you know, at the tail end of Bond and he was transitioning out. There were 3 Bond films that Roger Moore did in the 80s. You know, you start with For Your Eyes Only, then you have Octopussy, and then you have A View to a Kill. Dante, first of all, I know you're one of the larger Moore fans in residence in this discussion. What do you think about these 3 films versus his 4 films in the 70s? Do you think that they are stronger, weaker? Do you take them individually? How would you rate them as a Moore fan?
It's like it's like everybody was saying, like towards the tail end, you can see he was kind of like he was getting tired of it. His earlier films were, I think, during the 70s, they were a little bit better. Mm-hmm. But towards those last 3, it was just kind of like, you know, I'm here. I'm just going to do a James Bond film. Mm-hmm. That's basically how it felt. And then when you kind of see that transition over, I think it was a hard transition over to Dalton, because when you watch that, like when I go from what I've seen from Roger Moore to Dalton, it's a whole different tone for a film. Mm-hmm. Like you have him more like it's more talking and like as Conrad said, more investigation, like kind of almost like you're doing a little bit more legwork than most of the Bond films. And he's just, I don't know, for me it just feels like sometimes it's like he doesn't come off, how can I put it, like it's not strong, like it's not strong as a person, as a Bond person.
Right.
But
sorry, go ahead.
I know I was just going to say, but it's just, for me, it's nothing against Timothy Dalton. It's just those 2 films are not like the best ones, especially the second one after was License to Kill. Mm-hmm. That one is just it's like you're doing a generic action film. Mm-hmm. Like you're going after a drug lord who kills your best friend's wife.
Right.
That's it. That's all it is.
Do you not like vengeance, Dante?
I do. But it didn't feel like, when License to Kill, it didn't feel like a Bond film. Because, we're taking a License to Kill away. Like, okay, I'm still going to do whatever I do. Like, it's just like it's like that generic cop film. You know, you had that one cop who just keeps breaking laws. He's like, that's it. Put your badge and a gun on the desk, and you're done. You're on leave. You're done in the force. And that's what it was. That's exactly what License to Kill was. It's like, you know, we're taking your license, put your license on the table, you're done. You knew you were going to still go and do what you're going to do either way.
Why am I suddenly hearing a Harold Faltermeyer score in the background for this one? No, that's a good point, Dante. That's a really good point. Do you happen to like? I mean, obviously you like Bond films, but do you happen to like one of the 3 Moore films more than the other, or how do you rate them if you were able to stack them?
Not really. Like I'm trying to think. If I had to really rate them,
I could taste the bad taste in his mouth right now.
It's a hard, because like if you go, honestly, I couldn't.
Hey, Mike's back.
Hey, Mike.
Hey,
Mike, glad you're back, man.
Thank you. I managed not to beat the living daylights out of my computer.
Oh, good.
I'll wait till after the stream for that.
Okay. Matt.
We give you a license to kill it.
Thank you. Because I need one.
Matt, tell me a little bit about your take on, Dante just presented his take on the 2 Dalton films at the end. He also talked about the first 3 films. I'd love to get your take as a movie YouTuber on the 3 Roger Moore films in the 80s versus his 4 films in the 70s as well. What do you think about those? Is there a shift? Is there a comparison to be made?
There's a comparison. I feel like Mark Freeman. There is a comparison to be made. I am actually kind of opposite of Dante. I'm far more a fan of the direction they went with Dalton in the latter half of the 80s. I think For Your Eyes Only, it's clear that's kind of where they wanted to take it. Like, I just watched the scene when he kicks the car over. I'm like, I could totally see Dalton doing that. And then Octopussy and View to the Kill, they kind of brought it. I mean, Bond literally dresses as a clown in Octopussy. Like,
right.
They're not subtle about this. And For Your Eyes Only, it's pretty good, I think, because it's a little bit darker. Octopussy was, it was a movie that I watched. And A View to a Kill was, oh my lord! If you were to ask me to rank them, to paraphrase Brad Pitt from Moneyball, there's For Your Eyes Only, then there's Octopussy, then there's 50 Feet of Crap, and then there's A View to a Kill, and then we get to The Living Daylights, which is fantastic. And it's great. And me and Michael have talked off stream before that I think that's the one that like hits the books the best. Like when I think of like a translation of maybe not directly the book to the film, but just like the feel of James Bond from the books, I just feel like watching that. And it's funny having watched A View to a Kill the night before I watched Living Daylights. Like, it's so crazy. Just the climax of Living Daylights just was even more epic because of how lackluster the other one was. And The License to Kill, it's my second favorite Bond film. I love it to pieces. I like the fact that Bond kind of just goes astray, which he kind of does in Living Daylights. He's not on assignment there. He's kind of going on his own anyway. So I kind of like that, but I do understand why in the 80s fans weren't ready for that, especially like general movie fans, because they were so used to Roger Moore through the 70s, like the more fun, and so when Dalton went super dark, I can imagine it would almost be like if in No Time to Die Daniel Craig dressed up like a clown. Like,
right.
I don't think fans would like that and be ready for that.
Right. Now,
and
Mike.
now I want to see that.
Oh yeah. Mike, what was your take on the transition from View to a Kill to Living Daylights? How were you feeling since you went all the way back to Live and Let Die?
Yes. Well, I was when it was finally announced, when it was announced that the role would be changing to Timothy Dalton, I got pretty excited because as much as I do love Roger Moore, although I'm kind of more of a fan of him as the Saint than Bond. Actually, I do love his Bond. Don't get me wrong. It was just after how painful A View to a Kill kind of is for me. It's just I just thought it to be I like the theme song. But I was pretty excited because I really liked what I'd seen of Timothy Dalton. Really, only actually as Prince Baron and Flash Gordon, of course, and maybe not much else. But I liked what I'd seen, and I just looked at the guy and go, "Wow, that guy's pretty good." He was really great in that one role, and I think I didn't know at the time that he was once actually, considered for Bond before when he was much younger. I did not know that at that point, and so I was pretty excited about it. And then, well, you know how I feel about Living Daylights, Michael, because we've talked about it. I'm not. I don't know why I always have to caveat this, but I make no bones about it. It's actually my favorite Bond film. It's my number one. I know it's a controversial choice for some people, but I dearly love it, and I'm glad it turned out. Thank you, Remington Steele. I'm sorry, not the biggest Brosnan guy. I'm just saying it gave us at least 2 Dalton films. I wish we'd gotten more.
Well, I'd like to start with the film that many critics have said, especially in retrospect, is arguably they say it's easily the best 80s Roger Moore film, and some people have argued it's one of the best Roger Moore Bond films, period, which is For Your Eyes Only. Conrad, can you tell us a little bit about your overall impression of For Your Eyes Only in the context of Moore's tenure as 007? Does it deserve that accolade in your eyes?
Well, it depends what you want from Roger Moore. I mean, with Roger, I wanted, the suave, sophisticated, Englishman of the dying relic of the Empire on a jaunt around town who never got his hair mussed and was sort of haughtily superior because he'd read the script and he knew that nothing was going to happen to him. And every time he did a stunt, you cut to a wide shot and it was clearly somebody else. Or a close-up back projected shot of him with some snow being thrown in his general direction. It was cheesy fun Bond with Jaws as the supervillain and lots of gadgets and a Lotus that turns into a submarine and disco music and flares and running over alligators. That's what I loved Roger Moore for. It was
Right.
completely ridiculous. So for him suddenly to be in this really dark Bond where it's focused on something relatively simple, not a lunatic with an underwater base or a space base trying to destroy the entire world and start a new race or whatever it was every single time. He actually had to do some detecting. The guy that he thought was on his side turns out, spoilers, not to be on his side. There's some flip-flopping there. And he doesn't bed an awful lot of people. In fact, he even turns one of the main characters, one of the ladies that strips off and gets in his bed, he turns her away because she's young enough to be his granddaughter, so it's probably a good move. So yeah, it's a much more serious Bond. Yeah, pretty much. Anybody of legal age. It's a very dark Bond, and you can tell that, they really did get to the point where Timothy Dalton's signature was almost on the contract. And then suddenly Roger caved and said, yes, I'll do it. And he, as Matt mentioned, he was not happy with aspects of the script because it clearly was not a Roger Moore Bond. The scene where he kicks the guy's car off the cliff, he was very unhappy about because he said, that's not my Bond. Whereas it's definitely Timothy Dalton's, I'm a Yorkshireman, I will headbutt you in the nose Bond. It's...
Jujo chop.
Yeah.
Well, it's funny that it's funny, or not funny. I shouldn't say. I'd say that phrase too much. It's funny, just like a lead-in. It's appropriate, Conrad, that you're referring to, the more grandiose aspects of Roger Moore's Bond in the '70s versus how odd it was to see him grounded more in For Your Eyes Only. Because we have a super chat here from Wicked Person who says, somebody gave me a fistful of Roger Moore's silliest Bonds on VHS when I was sick with a fever. More than a little surreal to binge on them in that state.
I kind of want that to happen now. Next time I get really sick, I'm just going to watch 70s Roger Moore films.
And then we have a super chat here real quick from Grindhead Jim. Thank you. He says, I think the concept of A View to a Kill, but with Dalton in the role approach, even with the same cast, could have been far better. The story of A View to a Kill is great, and I'm so glad I got that acronym faster without totally having my brain shut down. Thank you for the comment, Grindhead. Now, Conrad is talking about, or just spoke about, how it was very jarring to see Roger Moore like that. Now, Dante, you've just expressed earlier that you weren't as big a fan of Roger Moore's 80s outings. What about For Your Eyes Only do you not like? What is it about it that makes it lacking for you? And even Roger Moore didn't like that film particularly, so you're in good company.
Yeah. Like, it didn't feel like him. When you go back and watch some of his set, like when you go back and watch the movies that he did in the 70s, and then you come back and see like A View to a Kill, like, this is a good movie, but this is not a Roger Moore movie. Like you're used to him making those quick, witty, corny jokes, and then doing something quick and witty and corny. It was like, I'll put it like this: Roger Moore in his 70s and before he got to the 80s, like last 3 80s movies, it was more like watching Adam West and Burt Ward Batman. If you would have gave Roger Moore like a bomb to run over with his head and like, where can I dispose of this bomb? That would have been him all day.
Yeah.
So, and that's the Bond that you prefer seeing Roger Moore as, is what you're saying, like more than what came in the 80s.
Yeah, it would. How can I put this? So it's more of, so I like I said, I like Roger Moore, but once I started seeing more of his movies, it just kind of like, oh, this is kind of campy. You're making corny jokes just to kind of, whoever wrote this is making just corny jokes for you to say in this, and that's it. It wasn't like with like compared to like the Bonds before him, like Sean Connery and Richard Lazenby, and then the Bond after him. He was like that. He was like that comedy kind of campy guy that you had for James Bond, and you can feel like, okay, these are okay movies, but they're not the greatest Bond movies,
right? But you feel like Moore was used to his best potential in those Adam Westy style situations, and then here he was kind of squandered a little bit,
right? Because it felt like that's he kind of felt like okay, this is a Bond I can play. Like this is cool, man. Let's do it. Where's my cave? Where's my cow? Where's the James Bond cave? And I got it. James Bond car. Okay.
Mike, what did you think of For Your Eyes Only as a film?
I did like it, actually. I don't mind them going back to that different style. It was a little bit different. Well, a little bit different for Moore. I mean, Live and Let Die. It was closer to Live and Let Die. I mean, I like that a lot better, actually. But that was it was sort of a little bit closer to that than it was Moonraker. But I'm one of those weirdos that enjoys the silly aspects of the Bond of the more the 70s Moore Bond. I do agree with what has been said by Dante and Conrad that Bond fits that more of a fun-loving kind of a, I hate to use the word camp, but it kind of does, more fits that better. I don't think any that style of Bond film would fit anyone else, to be honest with you.
Right.
But it worked for Moore. And I do enjoy them. I mean, I loved them when I saw them in the theaters, and I do enjoy those. But when they got to a cinema, and again, this was talked about when the film was on its way to release back then. For Your Eyes Only, and you have to forgive me, I always have to resist the temptation of giving it the Mad Magazine title, For Your Eye Bags Oldie. I can't help it. Every time I think of that title, I hear it now. But it was talked about it like we're trying to make a return to a more grounded Bond. It was kind of after Moonraker, that was what the producers of the film were talking about a lot. It's what you read about in Starlog magazine and interviews coming up to the film, whatever, something like that. And I don't mind it. I think it was okay. I think it's a pretty good film, but you can get too close. I think sometimes you can get a little bit too real with Bond. And they didn't with this one necessarily. It was later with James Bond. But I think if you denude a Bond film too much of its charm, if you denude it of some of its nudge nudge wink wink at the audience type of feel that it will have, it could hurt a film. So For Your Eyes Only is about as close as I would want that to come for, especially for a Roger Moore film in terms of grounded.
Okay. Now we're gonna Matt, I'm gonna bounce this over to you, but we're going to jump from For Your Eyes Only to Octopussy, because you said in your opening sort of thoughts about Roger Moore, you mentioned Octopussy acutely, and I'd like to find out from you, because I've always gotten polarized opinions about this from friends. It's a love or hate film. You either love it or you hate it, and I'm sort of I'm probably in your camp with it, but I'd love to get your thoughts rather than mine.
Yeah, so just really quick on For Your Eyes Only, I do think that the mountain climbing sequence is one of my all-time favorite Bond sequences, and I like to think a young Tom Cruise sat in the theater and was like, I'm going to do that for real, actually, one day. There's going to be no real production. That's where Mission Impossible 2 came from. But yeah, Octopussy was... I don't know. I had seen him on Junkers. My dad really likes. He was born in the 60s, so he really grew up with Moore's Bond. So we would watch those ones together. And so I had definitely seen it. But watching it again, I was just like, I feel like I should care more about like at a certain point when it gets to the circus and there's the bomb, I'm like, were they trying to kill you? Like, I'm just like, oh, I was like, I liked Octopussy as a Bond girl. I thought she definitely falls more in the camp of like the pussy glores of like she actually does something. Which I enjoyed that. But ultimately it's a fine movie. It's definitely not one of my favorites, but it's not one of the worst, although if I guess I was ranking them, it would be on the lower end of my rankings than the higher.
Right. Now, before we keep going with the discussion, I wanted to bring up that now that we're in the middle of more, Conrad was kind enough to put together a lot of visuals for this panel. And one of the visuals that he prepared was Moore's very first appearance as Bond, which we can juxtapose against Dalton's first appearance as Bond. So I'm going to play this real quick. Or sorry, show the picture. I have the video. Hold on. I clicked the wrong button, everyone. Well done, Conrad.
Well the beginning of Live and Let Die, right?
Yes.
Yep. So that gives you quintessential Roger Moore Bond. The first time you see him, he's in bed with a random woman who looks half his age.
But see, I think this is kind of the reason why I hate to say this, and I'm going to take us out of the 80s a little bit. This is why I like Daniel Craig as well, because Daniel Craig gives you that grounded feeling, like, okay, I'm just the guy, but I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing. And I feel like to me, like he's like a James Bond kind of character. Roger Moore waking up. I remember this, and that sad part about it, I remember this Roger Moore scene because I think I just recently had watched Live and Let Die, and she's hiding in the closet, and Manny Penny is helping her. Manny Penny, what are you doing?
Yeah.
It's just like, but the opening to this was just like Live and Let Die. I like, but there's just so many things. It's just like the best part of that, and I forget her name.
Jane Seymour.
Yes, best actor. She was the only one that did great at that movie.
Solitaire.
Yeah.
Yes, Jane Seymour. She can act in any movie, and she could do no wrong. Just saying.
Well, never let it be said that I don't adjust dynamically to a fluid situation. I'm sensing that we're going to have some back and forth here. We're not going to make it a total versus, but you know what? Let's just throw the notes out, and we're going to jump right into we're going to do some fusion here with Bond Dalton. Let's play Dalton's first. You're ready to fight? Let's play Dalton's first appearance. And then we'll discuss. We'll discuss. How about that? I won't even make it specific. Here we go.
Yeah.
But you know what? Now when you put them in context, yeah, that does make it look better. It's like, oh, you just killed one of my friends. That's it.
Yeah. The first time you see Dalton, he is angry, and he spends the whole pre-title sequence pushing people out of the way and shouting at them, and then he brutally kills someone, and you think, okay, this is going to be a bit different.
Yeah.
There's no way Roger would have done any of this.
And then within 2 minutes, he's on top of a moving truck, like Indiana Jones style, trying to cut through the canvas top to get to the guy. I mean, Mike, when you saw that in the theater, what were you thinking? I mean, I would have been on the edge of my seat just throwing popcorn. I'd be so excited.
That remains to this day as one of my. If we had to just rate the opening sequences, the pre story sequences, the prologues, if you will, probably my favorite of the prologues because man, automatically it's tense, it's action packed, it's thrilling, and that first shot you show there. I think that's key. It sells me on Dalton immediately. Look at that face. Look at that look on him right there. That perfectly blended with the Bond theme and everything. It just everything about that scene, for me, that opening is perfect, especially after all that violence and all that action. The way it ends with him landing on the boat, the beautiful woman who, as you know, he he's just had all this action, all these fellow agents have been killed, all this mayhem, and then he basically tells headquarters to pick him up, and she's like, well, she sees him because she's looking for a real man, as she says in her dialogue. And then he goes, pick me up in 1 hour, and then when she offers him the drink, better make that 2. Then the smile comes on. You go, wow, that's James Bond right there. It's all there in that one scene, and that sells. That's just one of the greatest Bond prologues ever, in my opinion.
Can I say this real quick? You all making me a Timothy Dalton fan now.
I love Timothy.
You're pushing me like to that edge now. Like,
well, hey, look. I'm not trying to convince you of anything. I was glad to have a Roger Moore super fan, but I mean, every time you talk about Roger Moore, you're like, oh, it's cheesy, is this, is that. I didn't like the 380s movies, and I'm going, I don't think Dante really likes Roger Moore all that much. But I could be wrong,
Dante just respects his elders. That's what's going on.
No, because when your first James Bond movie is a Roger Moore film, it's like, okay, this is my James Bond now.
Yeah.
And then and I watched the Sean Connery ones. I was like, okay, it's Sean Connery. Like this dude, who's this dusty dude? Get out of here. And and then it's like, okay, now that I watch it a little bit more clear, I'm like, Sean Connery did play a good Bond.
Mm-hmm.
There was something I forget which one it was. It was kind of iffy. The one where he went to Japan and they dressed him up. I was like,
the man with the golden gun.
No, not the man with the golden gun.
You only
lived twice.
Yes.
Oh, I thought you said it was about more.
No, I'm sorry. For Sean Connery, it was. Yeah,
sorry.
That one was kind of iffy. I was like, we playing on some lines here, but
today.
then when you see him, you just see him he's more of a kind of like a regal Bond, but his quips are more adapt to the situation at hand. But Roger Moore is just so it had to be in the Roger we just need a joke here. Roger, you got any jokes? I got some. I'm playing jokes for you, throw at you. And then it's you go back and man, you just kind of start dissecting everything. And now that I'm going back with you guys and looking at some of these scenes with Timothy Dalton, I thought he was just stiff acting, but no, it's now I can see that's a Bond. He's really a James Bond right there.
He's the second coming of Connery, I thought.
Yes, wow, yeah. That is a great take, Mike. The second coming of Connery.
And that's why I loved him. Connery is Bond to me, but and even though I love Dalton, Bonnery sets Bonnery. See, I'm old, man. Connery sets the standard. I'm changing his name to Bonnery now because no one's better. No one does it better. Oops, wrong.
IMDb, someone go in and edit
mixed up. I think I've always considered him to be the second coming of Connery because I'm not saying he's doing an impression of him or anything, but he recalls Connery to me. And that's as much. Look, the Moore films. Let's be honest. Moore's take on Bond is unique to Moore. No one else doesn't even like that, and ever will. And he's almost a separate character in some ways. And it's not disrespect. I love Moore, you know that. But Dalton comes closest to getting to the master, who is Connery, in my opinion.
I think by Dante's own admission, I think Conrad, we've got him close. We're close. So yeah. I'm just gonna.
I'm feeling Dante's very much like me with the prequels, to where it's I know the original trilogy is better, but I still love the prequels because it's my intro. So I got you. I understand where you're coming from.
I get that.
But then I talked to Michael, and but you talked to Michael about the prequels.
to quote a non-Bond character, but in a more pleasant tone, Dante tasks me, and I shall have him. So Dante, I really appreciate your objective insight into some of this. Your malleability. That's why we love Infinity Equation and your show. You guys are objective guys who always tell the truth, even in your own mind. So I just want you to see this one more time.
Is that Burt Saxby? I'm a killer. That's Burt Saxby. He just killed Burt Saxby on the cliff.
Dante and Conrad, I would love you guys to, everybody, of course, but Conrad prepared some images of the poster art. And what are your impressions? Everybody weigh in. You know what? I told myself I'd throw the clipboard out, so I've thrown it out. everybody, I'd love to find out what your impressions are of the poster art for the Moore films.
Nice.
I love the painted artwork of old school movie posters, which were contemporary to me, which means I'm also old. I really didn't like it when they started going too Photoshoppy. But what do you guys think of these posters? Which one's your favorite? Which one do you like?
A View to Kill is objectively wrong on many levels.
Mm-hmm.
It has nothing to do with the movie.
Right.
Well, that happened in the movie, but
is the poster. I can say that definitively.
Yeah.
Did it?
Were
they on the bridge?
yes, they were on the bridge. Yeah. That happened.
Yeah, it's Golden Gate Bridge. That's the climax.
That's right.
I don't think he was walking up it in slip-ons.
No, or in a tuxedo, or
He
standing.
was like clinging here.
I don't think he was wearing a tux either.
No.
Well, let's
I
be
think
honest. His
Octopussy's-
stuntman was clinging for dear life, and he was on a green screen.
Right.
Yeah, of course.
Man, that had to be the best job for being Roger Moore. Yeah, you do stuntman. I'm like, man, this guy is not doing any stunts. I'm getting paid big bucks at this point.
Yeah.
I think For Your Eyes Only poster is one of the most iconic of all the Bond posters. I think.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. How do you go wrong with the legs?
Yeah, they mimicked that in the Filmation He-Man animation all the time, and they mimicked it on countless comic book covers after that. I mean, it was definitely, it made an impact for sure.
And Marvel even did comic adaptations of that and Octopussy
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep.
by Howard Chaykin.
Yeah.
I didn't know there were comic adaptions. I gotta
Oh yeah,
search those up.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Just those two by
Leave
Marvel.
it to
I don't-
Clobberin times to tell me about comics.
Oh, that's just a habit, man. I always default to comics at some point. Sorry about that.
Here are two of the Dalton posters.
No, I'm not
for this.
saying that.
Here are the Dalton poster films, the main A style ones. I believe I could have that wrong with License to Kill because there is a beautiful. I'm sorry. Yeah, there's a different poster for License to Kill that this may be the A poster, but there's another version that's more red. It has like the sort of red motif, and then the license, the Living Daylights poster. This is the one that everybody kind of thinks of
Yes.
when they think of Living Daylights, but there's also the beautiful collage artwork that was part of the British ad campaign. My dream is to actually have a British quad poster of the Living Daylights collage artwork that has the car and Kara sort of laying there with the sniper rifle. It's a really, really cool poster. But what do you guys think of these?
I think Living Daylights is definitely more like a classic Bond poster, whereas License to Kill, I'm not sure if it was Dante who said that they were trying to go more lethal weapon. I definitely see that even in the poster. Like, there's definitely more like this is an action where like you got Bond like running towards camera, you have the tanker blowing up. Living Daylights definitely feels more like like I could see that being a Sean Connery poster.
License to Kill is somebody's first Photoshop job. That's what it is. License to Kill is somebody's first Photoshop. This is the first time Adobe Photoshop was introduced to everybody. And they're like, yo, just go out and do your best.
So this is sorry, I was just going to say this. So what you're saying, Dante, is this is like somebody's first posting on DeviantArt is what you're saying.
It's the first time the website opened up. Like, yo, like, hey, just post your best work. And this is when Adobe was like, I'm sorry.
Go ahead, buddy.
I was just going to say, this is the first time Adobe Photoshop was entered into like the movie scene. Like, yo, hey, we got this new program for Adobe Photoshop. See what you can do with it. Just kind of learning and see what you can do. All right. What's some clips out of the movie? Click. There we go.
It does feel like they only had like 4 character pictures, and these were the only 4. And they were like, hey, look, you got to do something with this. And we have a stock photo of a tanker blowing up. Make a poster.
Yep, exactly. Like you said, like Living Daylights, it has that classic feel of a Bond movie.
Yeah,
and
it really does.
I would have to see the B poster for License to Kill just to compare it. That, if it was Mikey, what you're saying with that one, it sounds like it's a lot better than this.
That might be the B one right there, huh, Mike? Or no?
I can't remember which one's A and which one's B, but there's one that's more red, and it's
red
just
in
it.
Yes.
It has a cutout of Robert Davi's eyes, and it's Bond, sort of almost in like a production photo. It's very collagey. It's kind of, I don't know how to describe it.
I actually just found it, Michael. I can send it to you. I just pulled it up. I'm not sure if you'd be able to pull it up on the stream. But
I might be able to pull it in there if nobody minds me not always looking at the camera. Yeah. Conrad, what's your take on? I guess I shouldn't have pulled them down, but what's your take on the Dalton posters versus the Roger Moore posters?
Yeah, I prefer the Roger Moore era posters, but that's just because I grew up with poster art by great artists like Drew Struzan and so on. So that's, to me, great poster art. Mm-hmm. But I like the Living Daylights one. I mean, even though it's not terribly realistic, I mean, Miriam DeBeau never wears a dress that you can see through.
Right.
Point in that movie, or holds a gun, in fact, I don't think. But apart from the sniper rifle at the beginning.
Right.
So... But it is a classic Bond poster, I think, that one. Whereas, License to Kill is not great.
Yeah.
She does actually hold the gun when she jumps on the horse and goes racing after James. She does pull
she?
Yep, she pulls the machine gun.
Matthew, send that to retroblasting@gmail.com.
Oh,
and that way I'll be able to. No I'm on Melinda's laptop, and all of her accounts are different from mine. Now let's kind of get into some of the plot of Living Daylights. I'd love to talk about Living Daylights as Bond's initial outing. I know that Dante, you were saying that you weren't thrilled with License to Kill because it was just kind of a by the numbers cop vengeance script, which I think that's a very arguable statement. So that being said, what did you think of the Living Daylights as a Bond film?
It was good. There was parts that I just had issues with, I can't leave without my cello. Woman, you're being hunted. You can leave the cello. We can buy you 25 different cellos later on. Like that part, mind-boggling.
Well, it was a Strat, though.
It's just gonna be Stradivarius. I understand it.
Saved their lives later.
Oh yes, it did save their lives. When they were going down the mountain, he was steering with it, tearing up the Stradivarius along the way.
Yeah, it's quite a valuable piece, though.
It only got one bolt hole in it. It's fine.
Yeah.
Not going down. No, there's no way you're going down a mountain. Just not tearing up the Stradivarius.
James went to space before that. You're really going to say sliding down a mountain on a cello case? That was too high.
Yes, even that was too much right there at that point. But it's just I feel like it was a good movie, but for me, I don't know. When I was sitting there trying to watch it, I felt it was just a little tad too long. This stretch, some parts felt like they were stretched out a little bit too long. And it was just man, I'm trying to. In all honesty, I was sitting there really trying to focus on it, but there was just something that was just taking me out, and I don't know what it is, and I just couldn't. I'm just man, I gotta take a break from this because it's just it feels like it's too long. Either the story's not progressing fast enough for me, or there's an issue with the pacing of this movie, and it just. I had to watch it in sections. Unfortunately, I really had to watch it in sections. As bad as that sounds, the first part kind of started off good, but then it just kind of seemed like it got a little bit slower, and things got extended out more than they need to be.
Would you say it's better or worse than A View to a Kill? Oh, wow. Okay.
Well, Dante, your experience with that sounds very similar to mine with Octopussy, to where it started off pretty good, but then it just got progressively by the end. Interesting. Right. How are we so flipped? I'm just realizing that with every conversation, I'm the scarred face of Dante's Two-Face coin.
That's right.
Well, Conrad, what I'm thinking here is, we were able to get Dante unexpectedly to admit that he's kind of warming to Timothy Dalton.
Yeah,
but he's talking about Living Daylights in a way that's not doing it for him. What if I showed you this poster?
That's a better poster.
Oh, yeah.
That's a better poster right
there. Shut up and take my money.
Right.
This is the British poster for the Living Daylights. And I think it's only fair to say that the Brits know how to market Bond. They know
I was about to say that, Michael. I was leave it to the British to market Bond the best.
Yes. Here is the second poster for License to Kill.
Yeah, That's better.
Yes.
That's much better.
That's somebody. I don't know. It's still so low. Like somebody's like just starting to Photoshop.
Yeah, there's a little bit of like, hey, we forgot to put the girls in the. Oh, just take this promo and put it on Timothy Dalton's crotch. You'll be fine.
I think if they would took the
subliminal message.
Yeah, if they would took the box frame out of it and kind of meshed them into like the red in the background, I think or having like red silhouettes in the background. But it's like it's that generic. But you have in that generic pose too. You have in that, hey, I don't like you, I don't like you. But we'll be working together soon at the end of this show or movie. It's like that, but I'm telling you, the License to Kill is like that buddy cop movie, and it's just.
I feel like Dante tonight is going to Photoshop his own license. He'll just be a beautiful minding it. He'll just have a bunch of screenshots of the film trying to.
It'll just be me like this, like I got you.
Now, we got to talk. I know we've talked a little bit about plot. I will add that I agree in one respect that while Living Daylights is my favorite Bond film of all time, I am not thrilled with the way they decided to do the ending. I thought, does anybody else here have a internal conflict with Joe Don Baker being the final boss?
Yeah, because after you have the great scene of like the fight on the plane, and he gets the great quip. It feels a touch like they're like, oh, we didn't do anything. Joe Don Baker wasn't in the fight. He wasn't on the plane. We gotta take care of him too. Here, write this scene in. It does feel.
Yeah, I would have just left him so that he could turn up in the next movie or a later movie or something. Just leave him. It was such an anticlimax. It's another 10 minutes you don't need. Just get him to meet up with Mariam DeBow at the concert and roll credits. I was done by that point.
Right. Yeah. Mike, what did you think of the ending to Living Daylights?
Well, to quote Mr. Science Theater 3000, you guys watch Joe Don Baker movies? Walking tall for me. Yes, I can understand where you're coming from, Michael. It does seem kind of a. It didn't bother me that much, but you could have probably left it off, as Conrad is saying. If you really think about it, this is kind of a Bond film that doesn't have it has baddies. It doesn't have like a super charismatic mastermind that he's fighting for once. And even Robert Davi, yes, he's just like a drug dealer, but he is kind of that kind of villain in a different way for License to Kill. But there really isn't one for Living Daylights, which is kind of good. And I guess they felt they needed that. They had him in conflict with the one guy who was kind of pulling the strings, but wasn't one of these polished, sophisticated villain types. But he was close as you get in that film as the big mastermind. So they thought Bond needed to take him down. But I agree with you. You could have not had that. You could have just left it where Conrad is saying and have him pop back again, because it's just really boils down. He wasn't for once trying to take over the world with a secret base at the bottom of the sea or anything. Scott was talking about earlier. He was just kind of an arms dealer jerk.
And has anybody here been able to rationalize why Dalton didn't simply aim lower than the little face shield on his rifle? Because he had that little plexiglass face plate thing. I was like, why are you going to waste all 7 shots on the thing that's already blocked the first 2 rounds? I love Living Daylights, but every Bond film kind of has a wacky moment in it, and that's the wacky moment in that film.
Goldfinger, why would you try to fist fight Oddjob and not just grab a piece of gold and try to just beat his head in?
He did hit him in the head with the gold piece, and he just
went into a fist fight with the first. Well, I guess Sean Connery was like, I could beat him. I could.
He did. He did. The funny part about that, he did kind of beat him with a couple of items, and he was just shaking it off, like, yo, this dude got hit with a gold brick, and he's still fighting you. Like, at this point, we're done. And just kind of going back to Living Daylights ending, he should just shot him when he walked in there. He didn't hear him. He was sitting there playing with his little desk toy, or he should just went and shot him, and that would have been it. You shoot. This is what kills me sometimes in movies.
I wish he would have done that, because the perfect Bond quip, because he's playing with his little models. He shoots them and it just goes, playtime's over.
Right,
There you
exactly.
go. Perfect Bond clip.
That would have set like the best 80s movies. Like you just shoot him in the leg, like bow. Like you ain't getting nothing to shoot him, like bow, bow. Like yo, now you ain't gonna get up and do nothing. You're not getting up and doing nothing. We're done. I'm walking away from this. But no, he caught the man shooting, like playing with his little. He was like, literally, he was playing with his action figures on the table. Somebody snuck up on him, and he just didn't do it. He didn't get just shooting. He just will get there. What was it like? Always from what was it? Danny Vito from Always. It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. He just came in there, bow, 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 bow. That's how he should have came in there.
The quote, "The good, the bad, and the ugly." When you gotta shoot, don't talk.
You know, the hardest part about hosting a live stream like this with Dante is the disappointment in knowing that most of the time, in order to make everybody else on the panel feel engaged, I have to look away from the screen. So I don't get. I'm constantly tempted to just watch Dante talk. Now, Conrad pulled together some very interesting data here that I wanted to bring up. Thank you, Conrad, for doing this. Bond's 80s theme songs and how they rate in the UK. In the UK, this is in the UK chart position. Pretty. Sorry, Mike. Go ahead.
Wow.
Go ahead, Mike.
That all-time high is the lowest. That's just.
I know, it's hilarious, isn't it?
Well, you know, it's one of the maybe only the handful of Bond films that doesn't have the title in the song.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. You can forgive them for that, though. How are you going to get Octopussy in a title?
Yes. Oh, yes, absolutely. That would have been really weird. Look, that title is audacious in any respect because you got to walk up to the theater and ask for a ticket and you got to say that word.
Octopussy sounds like a movie that would have been behind the curtain at like a mom and pop movie.
Yes, it does. I can't believe they used that title.
I bet you everybody walked up and just said "Ticket for James Bond, please." I bet you that's what they did.
I think I probably did. To be honest,
but see, I'll be that ticket guy. But what movie? James Bond. I don't know.
James Bond. With James Bond. You know, come on. I want you to say it.
Right.
You say it.
I do. I'm gonna
I'll give you a discount if you say it.
Like, and he had a test coat on. He'd be like, Octopussy. There it is.
$2 off if you say it.
You just write on a piece of paper and slide it to the ticket.
What were they thinking using that title? It's still, this is, no one's approved. It's just feels weird.
You know what? I think that they should have owned it. And like you guys were saying, I think they should have taken the challenge on and written a theme song that had that as the main theme. And I think that they should have gotten somebody like Kenny Loggins to do it because he would have been like Octopussy, Octopussy,
I'm terrible.
Octopussy. And then like
Kenny Loggins, and I go to Top Gun, and I just thought of
oh my god!
I think the stream will get taken down if we say the full title of that song. That would have been an interesting Bond theme. Maybe that's why they did it. Maybe it would have gotten like an X rating if they had a song built around Octopussy.
Thank you, man. That's the first thing I was thinking was Top Gun theme, like fly into the Octopussy.
It's worse than that. It's take a ride into the Octopussy.
Oh my god!
I mean, technically, the trailer would say Roger Moore in Octopussy, and the Roger Moore is just winking.
Man.
Then you have Kenny Loggins. He have his little plane. He'd be sitting in his little plane, like.
Raquel, the wonderful Raquel makes a good point. What if Prince did the theme for Octopussy?
Oh yeah.
Octopussy dance?
Nobody would be sitting here arguing against Prince.
I love you, Raquel.
We have some super chats here. Thank you, Raymond, for the super chat. He says, "For me, the peak of 80s Bond is encapsulated in the teaser line, the most dangerous Bond ever. Though Moore had his moments, such as when killing Emile Loke, Dalton was the essence of a dangerous spy, very Fleming-esque." And then I just want to make sure that I haven't missed any because we've been having so much fun talking that I realize I have not been paying attention to the chat at all. I may, if you don't, if your super chat wasn't asked, just let me know in the chat. I'll try and keep a closer eye on it and then just reprint it. Say, hey, I had a super chat and it was up there and I didn't get it shouted out. And I'll do it for you. But don't cheat. So
I feel bad now because now I think about it, it's more. I'm like, now you put this idea in my head. Now I think about it more. It's like, so what do you need, Bond? I got a need for Octopussy. Like he starts elbowing people. Like,
I think that's how all of Moore's contracts went before he played any of the Bonds. It was just even before Octopussy was a movie. He would just say, "I need Octopussy."
That chart of music, by the way, obviously it put "View to a Kill" from Duran Duran at the top of the chart. Would you agree that was the best? The best. Thank you, Melinda. I appreciate that.
Hey, Melinda.
Would you agree that that's the best Bond theme of the '80s? Is Duran Duran's "View to a Kill"? Any of you?
I would.
Yeah, I love that one.
I love
okay.
That. Way better than the film itself. Yeah.
Yeah, because you had that strong beat. It was like,
it's really good. Yeah.
Right, like you get you're ready. Like, okay, I'm ready for this James Bond, and then you get disappointed when you watch it. But like, go back to the beginning of the movie when the music was playing, when Duran Duran was doing something.
That's the real conundrum about View to a Kill is that it had a lot of great things going for it that would have added up to a great Bond film in any other capacity. It had a great theme. It had the gorgeous Tanya Roberts as the Bond girl for the film.
Yeah. The great Patrick McNee, by the way.
It had Christopher Walken as the villain. Like you're thinking,
oh yeah,
where Conrad and Mike, I'd love to get your takes on this. Where do you both think View to a Kill went wrong?
Conrad?
It's Roger being 59. I just, he's struggling up the stairs on the Eiffel Tower, and when Grace Jones comes in, you just look at him and think this man's gonna die in this bedroom. There is no way he's getting out of this alive. Yeah, exactly. I mean, I do love Sir Roger, God rest his soul, but he should have quit before then, I think, to be honest.
I have to say, having watched the movie on Wednesday, I think it was, and going from For Your Eyes Only to Octopussy, but one thing I couldn't shake was, everyone talks about Uncanny Valley. Roger Moore's eyes. There was just something weird in that movie. Every time he looked in camera, I was like, no.
I mean,
he's like the type of person that my parents would have told me to stay away from on the playground. Is all I'm saying.
But by the late, and may she rest in peace, Tanya Roberts. We lost her too soon. But by her own account, on the in interviews and even on the documentary, Dalton. That was my wishful thinking going on. Roger Moore was apparently a super nice gentleman on the set of View to a Kill, and never once, even in the scenes where they had to be basically disrobed together, she said that he put her immediately at ease by not making a thing of it and just telling her jokes from his career about weird things that had happened to him on other sets and stuff like that. So he seems like he would have been a real fun guy to hang around.
He seems like a true English gentleman. I'll say that. He definitely doesn't seem like, unless he's working with Jean-Claude Van Damme, then he's not bad. If you've ever read the story of that movie.
Well,
all accounts, he was a very nice gentleman.
Yeah. And again, I think Jean-Claude Van Damme could push anybody to their limit, honestly, on a set, from what I've heard. So I'm going to give Roger Moore the benefit of the doubt on that one.
Yeah, View to a Kill really. I'm totally with Conrad about how it just at this point it really is. Maybe Roger shouldn't have been there, but it's not much of a story either, and wasted some pretty good talent. I mean, I love Patrick McNee, so I'm kind of seeing him in that, even though he didn't get to do that much. Christopher Walken's a great actor, so probably a pretty good choice for any kind of a Bond villain you want to do. But I didn't think it had much of a story either, to be honest, Michael. And again, you're still supposed to believe old Bond in those action sequences, and we haven't even touched on another old Bond, or I guess it's unofficial. You guys aren't going to get near Never Say Never Again, I take it.
Because we only had 90 minutes, I left it out officially, but if you'd like to just sort of mention it real quick as an unofficial entry, go right ahead. I just wanted to
give it a mention because it happened in the 80s. We don't even have to touch it. But I remember seeing it within it was released either right before or right after, I'm fuzzy now, Octopussy.
Right.
Seeing it the same month or so, which felt kind of weird. And even old. But see, there's the reason why I mentioned it, though, is because I agree that the criticism that maybe Moore was kind of too old to be there, but never say never again. Whatever you think of the film, I don't get that when I'm watching that, when I'm, Connery. And he was older than Moore at that point.
Right. Now, I can
aged a little better than Moore.
And never say never again. I don't get that when I'm watching Connery, even though, yes, he's older.
Right.
Sorry.
And go ahead, Dante.
Sorry,
go ahead.
Michael.
No, you're fine.
Good question. So it kind of makes, so when you guys say that, so it makes me think of like, I can't remember because it's been a while since I watched a View to a Kill. He was trying to like make it like sink Silicon Valley, right? Mm-hmm. That was the whole point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A noble goal. Sorry.
Okay. So, what does that remind you of? What other movie did that almost like that?
Superman the movie?
Thank you.
That would be one.
Because that's exactly what it felt like. Now that I think about it, I'm like, why is Gene Hackman not here? Thank you.
It's a little weird.
Yes.
But look how prophetic that is right now. View to a Kill is oddly prophetic if we take Gene Hackman's lines and paraphrase them to sort of, mock together some Christopher Walken. He says, what if Christopher Walken had said, microchips, it's the one thing they're not making any more of, and right now we have the chip shortage coming out of, China. So, prices of video cards and everything have skyrocketed and all kinds of stuff. So I'm not trying to give View to a Kill unjust credit, but I think I just did. So I'm going to tuck my tail.
Talking about Christopher Walken, for me, growing up, I grew up in the era of like more cowbell Christopher Walken when he was just, and still is out of his mind. So watching this, I was just like, he's so subdued. Like, I think of Christopher Walken and he's just like, he puts steroids in horses so they can win races. And I'm like, no, I want him in Moonraker. That would have made more sense if he was the guy going to space.
True. That's true. I think Wolfie's referring to For Your Eyes Only here, but I wanted to bring this up. One problem with the View to a Kill is at about the 3-minute mark, why is there a stuffed Blofeld dummy in a wheelchair? Is that View to a Kill? Because I know
no, that's For Your Eyes.
That's
Yeah,
that's what I thought. Which I actually I love
that opening.
Me
That's a great
too.
opening.
I love that opening. Now, Conrad, thank you so much for some of the slides that you've put together. Look at the Bond box office figures here.
Wow.
These are for the 80s. So For Your Eyes Only did the best out of all of them.
That makes sense.
Well, it got a lot of good reviews at the time. I remember all the critics were, again, even though I love Moonraker, they're always saying, well, we're finally getting more grounded. At the time, maybe that's what people wanted. I was not picky either way, but there were a lot of people that many of their reviews were grounded in hey, look, we've got a Bond that's more like a spy film rather than doing what they did with some of the more out there films, even though I love Spy Who Left Me. I think people were wanted to come back down to earth a little bit. I hate to use that cliche, but that's a lot of what they were saying. And so it got a lot of good word of mouth at the time.
Yeah.
And in 1981, you had Raiders of the Lost Ark and a couple other films, but you didn't have a lot to compete with either.
Looking at this is kind of, I'm sorry, just really.
No, Dante, go ahead. Yeah.
I know, just saying, looking at this, it's really disappointing. Like, it's funny, like how Living Daylights outdid License to Kill.
Yeah. Living Daylights was actually considered a very good success at the time of its release, and it showed a lot of promise for the return or the reinvention of James Bond. I think a lot of people like yourself, Dante, and many others were thrown by the more grounded sort of by the numbers plot of a vengeance story with License to Kill. I can tell you that as a kid, even though I saw License to Kill all the time on cable, even after seeing it in the theater, the one thing about License to Kill that disappointed me as a kid was that it didn't take place in Europe or anywhere in Europe or the Middle East. It took place in Florida, and just outside of Florida, in Mexico and stuff. And I was like, oh, I already seen Florida. Like it was, it didn't have that that exotic kind of spy espionage, kind of feel to it.
Well, Michael, it's interesting you say that because a good friend of mine who was somewhat jokingly critical of the Bond films when we talk about them all the time. One of his, I don't know if I want to say criticism, he's kind of half joking, but he always says, yeah, well, you get this big action sequence at the beginning, and then, he's speaking of Bond films in general, the 60s and 70s and 80s, and then the rest of it for like half the movie is the Travel Channel.
Right.
And, then, and I say to him, by the way, I would say, you know what? That's true. But back then there was no Travel Channel. James Bond films were the Travel Channel to us, and we didn't mind it because it was couched with a James Bond beginning and end, middle, and it was fun, and you were following James Bond along. So even though he means that as slightly as a not in a fun way, I'm going, yes, the exotic locations are part of those old Bond films, most of them. So yes, Travel Channel, delightfully so, I always thought.
Right, and as I've grown up, like. I really like License to Kill. I have no problem with it now. It's just as a kid, I was always like, oh, I prefer it where, he's like in Bratislava somewhere, or, he goes to Switzerland and Goldfinger, and stuff like that. I wasn't as interested in him being in, the Keys, And I hear you. And Conrad brought up this other great slide. I know we only have less than 15 minutes left, so I want to get to these 3 slides that Conrad put together of the vehicles of the 80s Bonds before we go. But this is very interesting. This is the Rotten Tomato ratings for the 80s Bond movies. And isn't it interesting to me that the Dalton films have heavily rebounded critically from their initial reviews in the 80s?
I'd be interested to see when that switch happened, because I feel like a lot of those reviews are probably post Daniel Craig, when people sort of came back and started reevaluating that James Bond could be darker and that's better. And it makes sense that then A View to Kill an Octopussy would be seen as more lower rated Bond films, and For Your Eyes Only having a more darker tone. It definitely makes sense for like 2021, those being the ratings.
Is Conrad, do you think that this rating for License to Kill specifically, do you think that that's reflective of what Dante was referring to, where it became kind of a Bond for the mainstream, like it was the Star Trek 4 of James Bond films that everybody could go see? What do you think of that?
Yeah, I think it's exactly that, because I didn't feel like that was the reception that it got at the time. I certainly think it's something that people have applied retrospectively. And I think it's because, although he was before his time, maybe before people were ready for it, I think Timothy Dalton's Bond certainly paved the way for Daniel Craig's.
Yeah.
What do you think? What do you think, Dante?
I agree. Like it's great to see that it actually started coming up. But as I say, like it felt probably for that time they probably had like, look, this is another buddy cop film or whatever. Like it's one of those cop films like Lethal Weapon or something.
Right. I'm not. I'm asking you, like, because not to like be like nah. What I'm saying is, I'm asking you because you made the very astute point earlier that it was a very by the numbers plot, and as we all know in Hollywood, Hollywood tries to aim for by the numbers plots to get mass appeal, and it looks like over time now, this film has garnered some kind of mass appeal, which could deserve an eye roll or not. It might justify your entire point. So I was just curious as to your perspective.
It's hard to say. So I'll say it like this. I guess if I could have watched it back then, I would have said, okay, this is probably a decent Bond movie. But then now coming back to like watching it and saying, okay, this is a good Bond film. I have new eyes that I'm looking at it with. So just the percentage of it going up, and like Matthew was saying, like probably I would like to see where it started going up higher, where people were just like kind of like turned like, okay, this is a good movie, like this is a decent kind of movie. But probably during that time, it just felt like another movie.
Right. Yep. Mike, what do you think? I heard your wheels turning.
I think that is everyone's spot on. I think people, because I remember it not being all that well received when it came
wasn't.
out.
It wasn't
at all.
Yeah.
And I liked it. Again, I love Living Daylights a lot more, but I do like it. But I think I like it mostly on the strength of Dalton himself, to be honest with you. You could have had I think you might have could have done a different story. On the other hand, it was offbeat, because again, Bond is always going on a mission or something, and here you had one where he was just going on a personal vendetta type thing, and there's nothing wrong with jumping off the path a little bit once in a while, thinking outside the box. So maybe that's part of it as well. It was not the standard Bond plot. It did have more of a down to earth, like a cop film, action film feel to it. Mm-hmm. Bond on a revenge mission of his own, and I think that could be what made it a little bit more popular.
Yeah,
I mean, maybe that over time. And it's, of course, as it's been in syndicate, it's been aired and been on DVD and Blu-ray and all that stuff forever. And I think maybe that is what's escalated its popularity. That and just how terrific Dalton is.
Yeah, Conrad. We should probably point out. I'd be remiss not to point out that all of the '80s Bond movies were directed by the same man, weren't they? John Glenn.
Yeah,
they were. Yeah. Oh. Yeah, the Bond studio, Aeon, used to sort of create pretty much a family. So John Glenn started as an editor on earlier Bond movies, and then he moved up to second unit directing, and then he finally got the director's chair. So they were very good like that. You sort of progress through the ranks. They were very loyal that way. Now,
that's something that's not common now. You don't get somebody doing a 5-movie run in a franchise anymore. As the same director. I know Eon Productions and the Broccoli's had a completely different dynamic going on. Even back then, Star Wars didn't even have the same director. I think only Raiders of the Lost Ark or the Indiana Jones movies got the same director every film. But he brought a lot to these movies, I think, and I feel like he was very malleable in trying to push Bond in a different direction, and then ultimately succeeding, and yet to his detriment, because then the legal battles happen, not because of his fault or anything like that, but and then suddenly Timothy Dalton was in limbo. But yeah, I just want this is a John Glenn's biography right here for my eyes only, and highly recommended for anybody that loves looking at 80s Bond. All right, let's get to the cars, because we've only got 8 minutes left, and I want to make sure we get to these cars because Conrad put together some great visuals. All right, so these are the cars in For Your Eyes Only. Now, I got to tell you, go ahead, Conrad. I heard your wheels turning.
Oh, no, just the scene with the Citroen 2CV is great.
Oh yeah, rolling down the hill.
Rolling down a hill, yeah. It was a rejection of the gadget Bond. So the Lotus gets blown up by that guy that stood next to it almost immediately. So they end up rolling down a hill in the 2CV. So it was kind of a thumbing the nose to the gadget car. But then he shows up with another one at the ski resort. So I guess he's just got a garage full of them.
I do love the fact that the car's security system is to just explode.
I imagine a scene where Roger Moore's Bond drops his keys and his head just bumps the window and it blows up, and he calls Q and he's like, "Q, I've done it again." And he's like, "God, Bond, stop it."
He's already tired. He's already tired of making gadgets for this dude. He's like, "Look, every time I give you something, you break it. I'm done." I just want a Q that's frustrated, you know what? I'm done. I'm done giving you stuff.
There needs to be a great online comedy sketch about that where Q just says no more. I'm giving this to 009. He doesn't break everything.
We have some quick super chats here that I'm going to go through before we go on to View to a Kill's vehicles. So let me bring these up here real quick. We have Ronnie James DOA. Wow, thank you so much. He says, for another great live stream. We have Tree Theodore. Thank you for the super chat. He says, awesome work, gentlemen. Which 80s Bond gadget would you like to own?
Tanya Roberts.
Anybody else would like to answer that?
If that's how we're doing it, I want Carol Bouquet.
Okay.
Look, any of those watches are good for me because especially the one for Live and Let Die, where I could just yes, let me go ahead.
The magnet.
Yes. If I'm too lazy to reach that spoon, all right, let me go ahead. There's a spoon. There you go.
It also, yes, it had all kind of gadgets on those watches, huh?
Yes.
Yeah. What about you, Conrad?
Yeah, no, I'm completely with Dante. That would actually make an Apple Watch useful, which would be great.
I would say hands down all day, my gadget would be the 87 Aston Martin Vantage gadget car. See, I cheated, but that's what I
Nice.
want is the 87 Aston. And then Kay Burns, thank you for the super chat. Thanks for this great and important discussion. You are welcome. I think we're caught up, but just let me make sure. Oh, no, I have one more here. It's from Wolfie. He says, Michael, would you, I can't bring it up, but he says, Michael, would you trade the DeLorean in for an Aston Martin V8 Vantage? Yes, I would. I would do it in a heartbeat tomorrow. I would trade that. I really would. I would trade that car in for the Aston from Living Daylights. And it doesn't have to be the one. A Cumberland Gray Aston Martin Vantage. Technically a 1976 Oscar India, but I'm not going to totally nerd out on this conversation. But
it makes sense for Michael because if anyone is a RetroBlasting live stream watcher, I'm not sure the Aston Martin would start a fire in your garage.
That is true.
Sure.
And it would start. It would start.
That too. You can actually drive it somewhere.
Uh-huh. That's right. Jim Largo, thank you for the super chat. He says, this has been fun. Question, which Bond films had John Cleese as Q?
That would have been, I think,
Couple of the-
joins in...
Brosnan films.
He joins in, I think, Tomorrow Never Dies, but then the original Q is still there until he passed away, and so he becomes Q in Die Never Die. Before that, I forget what his acronym is, but it's not Q. He's just getting beat up by all Q's inventions.
I see.
There you go.
Okay.
I'm here to explain the Brosnan era to all these 80s Bond people.
Oh, and I sort of deserved that. So, all right. All right. We are moving on quickly to A View to a Kill's cars. These were never that interesting to me as vehicles. They're very prestigious. What do you guys think?
They look like a nice Sunday drive car.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Nothing Bondish, really.
Yeah.
I mean, they did take it to the races, the first one, so...
True.
It does make
True.
sense.
And yet somehow, and I didn't design it this way, I promise I didn't have this planned because obviously I threw the clipboard out the window. But we may be ending on my favorite Bond everything ever, thanks to Conrad. We're ending on the Living Daylights 1987 Aston Martin Vantage. I know I'm showing my bias here, but I think this is the coolest car that was ever, coolest looking car that was ever in a Bond film. But I would love to hear what you guys think is the coolest car that was ever in a Bond film.
Oh man.
You're not going to insult me.
I think that's the best. I think that's when I think of a James Bond car, that's when I go to is just Q showing him this Aston Martin. That's definitely the best to me.
Under the lever, you'll find a little red button. Whatever you do, don't touch it.
What was one he had Inspector? I forget which one he had Inspector.
Oh, Inspector?
What's that there? I don't think I've heard of that film. I definitely didn't try to forget
Never heard of it
from my memory.
I like the old ones. Don't get me wrong. I like the old ones.
Mm-hmm.
I get.
They make
to
new
me-
ones? When? Sorry, go ahead.
It seems like in every
I'm
James
sorry,
Bond,
Dante.
in every Daniel Craig film, he does have they use an excuse to get him back in the DB5, the original Aston Martin. But you're referring to the new Aston in that movie, right? If there is one, I can't remember.
I can't remember which one it was, but if we're gonna go, if I had to pick an older one, it was the Lotus that they you just showed, the White Lotus.
From Spy Who Loved Me, the Lotus
That's
Esprit.
probably the one I love the most, just because it has a submarine. It's a submarine.
Exactly. That's the only reason. I'm like, this car is practical. If I need to get away from somebody, drive on the beach.
But you know what that shows? That shows that once again, see, I'm not a beach person. I'm a snow and forest person. So the Aston with the outrigger would be far more useful for me.
Yes.
But we have not yet heard from our resident Brit, whose opinion weighs more highly than anybody in terms of automotive opinions. Conrad, your favorite Bond car?
It's in the Living Daylights as well. Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah,
Nothing to be sorry about. It's a fantastic vehicle. I love it.
it's a beautiful.
Let's just
car.
look at it one more time. Let's just look at it.
Let's spend our last minute of the stream just staring at this.
Can we have
And then
a,
we'll just fade away.
can we have a moment of silence just looking at the Aston from the Living Daylights? No, but seriously, I
And he
would
blew
really
it up.
say what's
And
that?
he blew it up.
Yes, he did, but he only blew it up after it had already been wrecked by that rocket propelled grenade. So in fairness,
The Russians blew it up.
he just they blew off its wheel. He knew it wasn't going anywhere, and he said, "I'm not letting
it out
this."
of its misery is what he did.
He couldn't let the communists get it. He had to blow it up. I know we're at time, and I don't want to run over anybody else's next event at Iconicon, but I would like to ask each one of you. We'll start with Matthew. I'd like to ask Matthew. I'm going to be interchanging that the rest of our lives. Just be ready. I would like to ask each one of you, starting with Matthew, to just kind of tell me why you love Bond and why Bond is important to you in pop culture.
For me, I think James Bond, he's very much like Indiana Jones. He's like kind of a man's man. He's someone that you can aspire. He's good looking or have the tech or the skills that Bond has. And they're just fun movies. Even the darker ones like License to Kill, like they're always enjoyable, like Saturday afternoon movies. Also, just if we're getting sentimental on it's important, it's also a bonding thing between my father, who's not really a movie guy, but watching Roger Moore Bond films with my dad. So, yeah.
Mike, why is he important to you?
Who's been well, when I got cut off earlier, I was going to say how much I've loved him, and he's been there with me ever since, either on the ABC Sunday night movie or went to the theater every time to see every Bond movie since Live and Let Die, actually Diamonds Are Forever. So he's just been a big part of my life because of a lot of the reasons like Matthew's talking about. He's kind of the ultimate male fantasy, isn't it? You want to be him. For all the things, except you don't want to get shot at, but you'd take it because consider all the fun stuff he gets to do. They're wonderful. They're wonderful adventure films, especially when they're not too grounded for me. I kind of like them to have the sort of the tongue in cheek and the nudge, wink, wink at you. That it's not even in a bit of a darker one, but it's not really that serious. I don't need it to be, and I just love these films. I love the fantasies. Secret agent aspect of it and things like that. So I just love them, and I kind of miss them being like that.
Dante?
He's just a guy, like he's a regular guy who has extraordinary skills and has the best gadgets, and I just love it. Like watching him trying to get out of certain situations. I'm like, all right, so how's he gonna get out of this one? I'm like, why didn't they just go ahead and kill him? And it's just exciting to see. It's kind of like Indiana Jones, but it's a little bit grounded. Not to say it's a whole lot grounded, but it's a little bit more grounded, and it's just exciting to see what happens next.
Yeah. Conrad, you get the last word, sir.
Well, for me, it's because he's English. It's because it's nice to see somebody up there represented among the superheroes, because we often play all of the superheroes in movies, but we're usually putting on an American accent. But this is an English gentleman. He's lethal, but he does it with style and self-deprecating humor, and it's just great to see. Well,
I want to thank everybody who's been on the panel. For those of you who came in late in the chat, I highly recommend. First, I want to thank Conrad for helping me put this panel together. Conrad is one of the co-hosts of Movie Oubliette. He's the mastermind behind Movie Oubliette. Highly recommend that you check out his YouTube channel and his podcast. Excellent, amazing work. He just did an expert level, pro level legend feature for Iconicon that I highly recommend you check out. Thank you, Dante, for showing up. Dante is the main host of The Infinity Equation, which is a podcast that goes or live stream every Friday night and talks about modern toys. It is my personal go-to for anything modern toy and news related, and it's highly entertaining. Mike, thank you for showing up from Clobberin Times. Anybody who loves comic books, who loves live streaming, who loves sci-fi, who loves geek talk, Mike is a master at it, and he's been doing it a decade before YouTube even existed. He's the man. And finally, one of my close friends, Matthew Kearns from Matt Movie 611, runs an excellent YouTube channel about movies and movie critique. And he just made a few hours ago, it premiered a entire retrospective on Tron for Iconicon. Highly recommend you check that out and subscribe to him as well. All right, that is it for us. Everybody, thank you for being here for the Bond discussion. And we'll see you at the Infinity Equation at 4:00 to talk about. I'll be in the chat to talk about Return of the Jedi. So we'll see you soon.
Yeah.